Boom, baby. We are going to have a good one here because we're going to talk about mastering your story, making some money, and getting on stages today. I got the one and only best-selling author, TEDx speaker, business coach extraordinaire, Deidre Sirianni in the house. Deidre, welcome to the show.
Ooh, what an intro.
Come on, we got to bring the energy. It's always something that we love to do. So let's get the energy rocking and rolling here. I want the people to know your greatness. Give us a little bit of a backstory as to how you found the passion in helping people speak and why storytelling has been what you've chosen to pursue as a career.
I love it. Well, the first thing is every time I tell a story of a trauma or a challenge or something that I've been through, whether it's on a stage or to someone one to one, it's always been something that has had the power of teaching someone a lesson that has changed their life. And that's been the feedback over and over again. But specifically speaking, 7 years ago, I was standing in my kitchen and I was putting my fingers through my hair, as us ladies or gentlemen with long hair do. And I was just putting my fingers through my hair and I was like, oh, something feels off here. So I grabbed my phone, I raced to the bathroom, I put it on camera mode, and I start angling at the back of my head, trying to figure out like what's going on here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a bald spot and it's a few inches big. It's on the top of my head. And I remember I was freaking out. I'm like, how did this happen? How do I fix it? Clearly, the universe is trying to tell me something because it's going after my hair. And I really like my long hair, okay? So it's always been my thing. I grew up with two older brothers. And so I walk back to my kitchen to sit down for a moment to ground. And that's when I hear this voice come out of me and say, if you don't listen to your soul, you're going to manifest cancer and die in the next year. And that was the second time in my life I had ever heard this voice. Then I have a flashback to 5 years prior. The only other time I had heard this voice before, and I have friends and family outside on both sides of me. My friend Marty's playing the guitar, singing the lyrics. It's beautiful, it's true. And I'm walking down the aisle, and I'm about to marry the man that I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And that's when this voice says, this just isn't going to work. So,
Hmm.
what do you think I did, Jake?
I don't know. I
The
don't know.
suspense, the suspense is big, right? So I said I do, and I shoved that voice down because I didn't know what it meant. And I really did think I was making the right choice. So now I'm sitting at my kitchen table 7, 8 years ago, and I'm like, I have four different types of autoimmune disease that the doctors can't seem to help me with. I have chronic pain in my neck and shoulders to the point where my massage therapist actually fired me. I didn't know they could do that, but she just couldn't help me anymore. And I had depression to the point of having a vision of ending my life. And from the outside looking in, I was the happiest person everyone knew. So I'm sitting there at my kitchen table and I'm reviewing all of these things in my life. And I'm like, could it be that this entire time, ever since I didn't listen to that voice inside of me walking down the aisle, that my soul has been speaking to me through these symptoms of disease? So I made a vow to myself in that moment 8 years ago that I was going to get radically honest with myself. I was going to have courage to do the hard things, and I was going to take massive inspired action. And that led me down the road of healing my trauma and eventually leaving that relationship, healing myself of three of those four autoimmune diseases. My chronic pain, depression, all of my symptoms went away when I got into alignment. So today, I help people transform their trauma into their greatest gift for humanity because I
Hmm.
believe that every single time we go through a trauma or we go through something challenging, there's a gift on the other side. We can be like, oh, I was divorced. I married the wrong person. I got sick. I'm in this struggle. Or we can take that. We can learn the lessons, just like what you do through helping people with their books. And we can use our voice, tell our story, and help the people that are in the place that we used to be get out of that struggle a lot sooner. So that is why I love storytelling, because I really
Hmm.
do believe that we all have these experiences to help people step into who they're meant to be. And that's one of my stories that got me onto this path.
Wow. Wow. What a story. Didn't know any of that. So that was a fascinating way to start this show. And I appreciate you sharing all that. When we look at this, right, and we talk about storytelling, and this is what you've now created a path, where do people begin? Right? Because sometimes with books and with speaking, figuring out what parts of the story, figuring out how much to include, figuring out is my story worth being told? These are things that come up all the time. So for you, when
Mhm.
you're helping someone really transform and build, where do they begin?
Great question. What I like to do when I'm working with people is my intuition usually gives me scenes of their life. So when I'm working with people in a one-to-one setting, I'm like, oh, I have this scene of you yelling or screaming into a pillow, or I have this scene of you on the playground. And they're like, oh, this is what's happening. So my intuition will guide me
Mm,
for people. But there's two things that you can do. Usually the story that you don't want to tell is the most impactful story to tell. And the reason why is because when we tell the story that's really going to be the story that's going to transform people's lives on stages, on podcasts, and all of those things, there's a part of us that might be like, I don't really want people to know that about me. Oh, people are going to judge me for that. Oh, I'm not fully embodied into that yet. So, where I like to lead people is into the story that they might be a little bit embarrassed about, that they may have some shame around for two reasons. By telling the story, you're going to heal parts of yourself that are not healed. You're going to become the leader you're meant to be. And you're going to speak the truth that people need to hear, that most people have
mm,
shame and guilt around. So that's one way. Another more like tangible way, too, is to create a life grid. And in
mm,
that life grid from like 2 or 3 years old or your earliest memories to the age you are now, what are the most pivotal moments you've had in your life that have shaped who you are? What have you learned and what happened? And that's where we can start plucking out stories that we can use in our entire brand. But the main story from stage for, big audiences is usually the story that it's like it's hard to tell and
mm.
requires a high level of you to really step into that with
Yeah.
courage.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I think a lot about that. And oftentimes the stories that are most powerful are the hardest to share, right?
Hmm.
Because they relate and people can see themselves in you, and they're like, oh gosh, I'm not the only one that went through this.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to feel seen, right? But at the same time, and I'd love your opinion on this, there's like the scars versus wounds theory, right? And sometimes you're still in the shit. So talking about it is actually detrimental, or it can be because it's not ended yet. So what's your philosophy or your thought process around sharing the vulnerable story, sharing your truth, but at what point of that journey do you need to be at to be able to share that story comfortably and to do it in a way that feels good versus like, oh, that's you need help, like you still are going through this shit, right? So what's kind of your thought
Yeah.
process on how you break that down?
Yeah, so I giggled a little bit there for a couple different reasons because I've been in it before and I've actually reprogrammed my nervous system to feel safe with an old trauma while sharing a story from stage. So, because I trust my body enough, I trust my skills enough, I was able to, in some situations, share a story that I was still partly in. There was still some emotional trigger around it, but I was able to reprogram my experience with it. So I'll give you an example. So years ago, or about a year ago, I was going on a stage, and I a lot of the time I talk about transforming your trauma into a gift. And I packed an outfit. I packed just a regular white outfit for the stage, but I also packed a sparkly gold dress that looked like a Beyonce dress, and I packed it, just kind of threw it in there, didn't really think anything of it. The morning of the talk, I was back and forth. Do I wear the white dress? Do I wear the gold dress? Do I wear the white dress? Do I wear the gold dress? And if you're listening right now, might be like, oh, okay, she didn't know what to wear. It was so much bigger than that. It was an identity thing. The sparkly dress is the girl that I used to be before I had a big trauma with an ex-boyfriend when I was wearing that dress that shined, that put herself out there unapologetically and had no fear. The white outfit was, this is a great outfit. I'm going to blend in with the event. I'm going to give my gifts and that's it. I ended up wearing the gold dress after having a very intense conversation with a coach of mine. Do I wear the dress? Do I not wear the dress? Do I wear the dress? I'm like literally freaking out in my hotel room about 30 minutes before I go on stage at this event in front of 500 people. And he's like, you know what, Dee? Your nervous system is not regulated. I don't think you should wear the dress. And then I get off the phone and I'm like, I must wear the dress. This is who I am. So I put on the dress and I'm like, okay, this is bold. I'm going to wear the dress. The last time I wore this, I experienced a big trauma that still is imprinted. It's not safe to fully shine. And I go on the stage and the first thing I do is I tell the story of, hey, I was just in my hotel room with my old coach on the phone. Do I wear the white outfit? Do I wear the dress? And I shared this story and I reprogrammed my experience of safety and shining in that moment, although it was fresh and uncomfortable. But I understand trauma and I understand the way of sharing the story and all of that. And it was connected to my message. But so that's like a safe way of sharing something you're going through. But it could have gone either way. I trusted myself enough to wear the dress.
Sure.
But another experience could be, and this is really common right now, I would say in the last couple of years with this vulnerability movement online, which is really powerful. But also, one of the biggest mistakes we can make is we can use our audience as kind of like a trauma dump or our therapist. And it's kind of icky for others because it makes them uncomfortable, but also we're just clearing stuff. So I would say the sweet spot for should I share this story? Am I ready or am I not? Is are you using the audience to process something? Or are you using your story to inspire people and you've taken some steps forward enough to share, hey, and this is
Yeah.
how you can take those steps. So I would say in in a long-winded answer, that is how I would measure it. But definitely with the practicing of the story and the getting into it is where we can heal those parts of ourselves as well. But we don't want to use our audience as our therapist.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. Do you think that do you think that the right stories are the things that convert higher? Or do you think it's the right offer converts higher when you're speaking from stage? Because on one hand, you
Interesting.
need both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's one part that's more important than the other in terms of is audience trust more important than audience belief in your ability to get them the result? What do you find when you're teaching storytelling to grow your business?
That's a really good question. I haven't actually thought of that before until this moment. I would say, based on my experience of the stages and the platforms that I've been on, my story is what gets people to want to work with me. If I'm on a podcast talking about my spiritual awakening, or I'm on a podcast or a stage talking about my trauma, or what we're talking about here today, people will hire me because they feel a resonance of who I am and they trust me. As far as how people can help me, if I think about, listening to podcasts or watching people on the internet, there are so many people who are story coaches. There are so many people that help people write books. We are one in thousands. But what makes us stand out, I think number one is the story. And I've had a lot of people say, I don't know what you do for a living, but I want to work with you. And then I'm like, oh, these are my containers. Oh, yeah, that works. It's typically it I think offer is secondary. I think story is first. So that's an amazing question to ask. I've
Yeah.
never really thought about that.
Yo, thanks for being good to handle it on the spot. I think it's a very interesting thing because there's the articles that are really easily read, right? The 5 tips, the 3 tips, the 6 secrets, whatever. Those are very tangible, very punchy, very quick. But then there's the
Mhm.
story, which often tends to be more of a longer form thing, right? And I think when you combine the people who do the best selling, right, are the people that are able to combine the education with the experience, right? And that's how we help
Mhm.
people write books. And that's how you kind of navigate stories. It's like you're teaching here, but you're also telling a lot of stories. And so we're seeing who you are on this interview, but we're also learning a little bit about kind of, okay, here's a tangible way to do things. Here's kind of what I've done that worked, right? So I want to talk about making money, okay?
Mhm.
Because I think that a lot of people want to speak. And a lot of people want to speak because they want to make an impact first and foremost, but you also want to speak because you want to make money. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of different ways. So, what are some of your favorite ways to monetize the speaking world?
Mhm. Yeah. So the first part is definitely mastering that story of building trust because now more than ever before, with AI, with everyone being a coach of some sort or an educator, we are in a sea of education and it's really easy to blend in with everyone else. So, number one is really crafting that unique story so that people see themselves in you and they lower their guard. The second part is learning how to educate and inspire people to take action.
Mm,
And this really comes from a couple different pieces. You want to have the education piece of, hey, this is what you need to learn. This is why, the what, the why, but also bringing it home with a story that makes it so obvious for them. So, for example, you could say, hey, you need to write a book. And people are going to be like, maybe I do need to write a book. Maybe I don't. Maybe I need to write it now. Maybe I don't need to write it now, all of that. Or you could tell about what, like the 3 steps of writing a book and why it's important and all of that, but also bring in a metaphor or a story that makes it so obvious that they need that one step or those steps for the result that they truly want, which most people don't just want to write a book. Like when I wrote my book, I wasn't like, oh, I want to write a book. I was like, I need to help. I want to help more people. I want to be more accessible. I want to do the thought leadership. I want to be seen. There were all these other pieces. And beneath that was like, when I do this, I feel good about myself. So there are all these other beliefs around it. So really understanding who you're talking to, what they're going through, and their true desires, because people don't just want to be on stage. They want to feel important. They want to feel like their life matters, like their pain has a purpose.
mm.
And so those are some of the pieces. And then the last piece is I don't sell from stage and I don't sell from podcasts. So there's a system that I teach that inspires people to take action, sees you as the leader that you are, and the people who resonate with you are going to want to go further. And those that aren't, they're not your people. That's okay. But also having an offer that is potentially evergreen that people can jump into and really take that step with you, I think is essential. And leading with value and connection. And as a speaker, you want to be unpredictable. You don't want to be the speaker behind the podium who's saying the thing that you always say. You want to be interacting with people and bringing an experience to them.
Yeah,
So those are some of the pieces.
totally, totally. I'm curious because you can monetize yourself in a many different ways to speak, right?
Yeah.
I would love to know what are some of your favorite and most profitable ways that you've done in the speaking world. And I'll give you an example. If we look at podcast, virtual podcasts, if we look at in-person podcasts, if we look at online summits, if we look at virtual keynotes, if we look at in-person workshops, in-person keynotes, what is kind of like your order of favorite things and highest converting based on your
Yeah.
experience and the clients you've worked with?
Okay, so this is such a great question because it's backwards. It's the opposite of what most people think, and I love this because if you're an introvert at all, this is great for you if you're listening. You're like, oh, I don't really want to be on stage in front of 500 people. That would scare, that would scare me, or I don't want to be out there. So my highest selling, and I say I don't do direct selling. Okay,
Right.
I'm not pitching stuff on people's shows or anything like that. But my highest hour of speaking was on a podcast and it was multiple 6 figures from 1 hour of speaking on a podcast. And I didn't even offer anything. It was all about storytelling and showing people who I was. So podcasting is probably my number one as far as conversions from it. Of course, you want to be yourself. There's specific things you want to have inside of each podcast that you're sharing and on in alignment there. So podcasting, I would say, is number one. Number two, my second highest selling hour was actually on a virtual stage at a summit. Most people think summits are dead. That's interesting. It's actually not so much that summits are dead. It's like online summits. It's more about you're speaking on the wrong platforms. You're speaking to the wrong people, or you haven't mastered your story and your talk. And that's usually the problem. And I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, we were on the same podcast, the same stages last year. And we were in the car together driving back from an event. And this person said to me, I haven't made any money from any of these events, and they're very successful. They do all these things. They're like, I'm not monetizing all of it. And right away, I thought about this person's talk and their presentation. And I'm like, their story was way too long. It was like 5, 10, 15 minutes long, way too long for an audience. They didn't educate and inspire and bring it home, and they didn't invite people to their future potential, their
Mhm.
future self of what's possible for them. And because of that, while I was doing very well per speaking opportunity, this person wasn't. And so it usually comes down to those pieces. And then the last one, but I actually love this. This is my favorite personally because I love being in front of people live, is live events in person. I love interacting with people, being in the room. That's my third one. Number one, podcast. Number two, virtual stages. And again, that virtual stage that I did the most on was 6 figures, and it was in front of 40 people. So not a big audience. There's a belief system that, oh, I need to have this huge audience to do well. No, you just need like 10, 20 people in a room that are aligned. And then self-hosted events, my biggest selling hour from a self-hosted event or experience had about 20 people in the room and was multiple 6 figures. So self-hosting is also important. And then other people's stages in person, about 75K. So all of these are profitable. All of them are important. It's really about what works best for you and learning how to work it, because it's a gold mine. This is how people scale their business and work less and make more and help more people. It's
Yeah.
through getting visible and having a system.
Yeah, I love how you answered that and you broke them down because so many people are like, "Oh, I want to be a speaker, but I want to do in-person keynotes because that's where I'm going to make the most money." And then they're like, "Oh, well, I'm only charging $5,000 for my keynote fee. I'm going to have to do 20 of them to make 6 figures." And it's like, "Wait a sec.
Yeah.
Wait a sec. What else do you got going on? How do you want to
Hmm.
maximize your time? Do you want to travel? Do you not want to travel? Do you want to be behind the screen or do you want to be in person?" Different energies, different people want different things. And what's really
Hmm.
cool is you've shown that through all of these, you can make money doing it. And it starts by making sure that your story is correct. It starts by making sure that you approach that opportunity with the right intention, with the right story, with the right material. And that's something that you really specialize in helping people do, right? And so
Hmm.
what I want to know is, and this will be our last like big topic, I think, is something that we and you were talking about right before is something you love to talk about. And it's the difference between visibility and profitability. And
Hmm.
I would love to hear your thoughts on, visibility versus profitability and kind of tie it into everything we just discussed.
Hmm. I love that. And so the first part is most people think that if you have a large following on social media, or if you have or if you're in front of 500 or 1,000 people, you're going to make more money. Not true. You have basically 60 seconds, maybe to 3 minutes if you're on a live stage or a platform to get people to buy into you. And if you don't do that in the first 60 seconds, people are on their phone, they're thinking about what they're eating for lunch, or they're multitasking and they're out. So the first piece is really about mastering that story and the talk, and then also knowing where people are going. If you are someone you're like, I'm a multifaceted entrepreneur, me too. I do a lot of different things in business, but when you're speaking from a platform, any platform, you need to be specific and lead and show people where to go. Otherwise, a confused person doesn't take action, right? So, profitability versus visibility. I remember this is about 5 or 6 years ago. I was in my go with the flow era. I'm an intuitive. I like to go with the flow. I was living out of a small suitcase filled with sparkly outfits, bathing suits, dresses, and flip flops. And I was living in different places. And I came to Canada for an event that I was speaking at in front of about 400 people that were all my ideal clients. And I went up on stage and I gave an amazing talk. People were crying, people were hugging me after. People were having direct experiences with God, the divine. People were just having these incredible experiences of healing and releasing whatever was going on in that moment. And I was in my element. I was giving so much value. But Guess how many people at the end of that talk ended up hiring me or buying my program?
Not much.
None, zero. Zero. And that was the moment, 5 years ago where I was like, oh, yeah, business is doing well, but these opportunities of visibility isn't turning into profitability. And I don't want to just be the most popular speaker. And this is another trap that a lot of us get into in the speaking space or visibility space. It's like, I want to be popular. I want to be liked. I want to have the most amount of likes and comments or people running up to me after a talk or whatever that is. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be the most profitable. So, in that moment, 5, 6 years ago, I gave a ton of value. People were talking about my talk 6 months after to the organizer. And I was on a lot of different stages because I was giving so much value. But I was giving people short term transformation, not long term transformation. So I was like, I'm going to give them an experience. I'm going to take them into a higher self meditation. They're going to have an experience with their higher self. They're going to collapse timelines. They're going to see their inner child, whatever I did. I don't remember exactly what I did, but it was something like that. And people had an experience. They were like, I'm good now. But did I really make the impact I could help people with at the time, which was the transformational work? No, I gave them an experience and they thought they were good. I was the most popular speaker. I say popular as in, people were so excited about it, but zero profits. So, what I learned from that experience is the workshop deep dives that people do from podcasts and stages. It's helpful, but it's more of a band-aid effect. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you something that's going to solve your pain in the moment, but isn't actually going to give you the result long term. Because after this event, after this podcast, after this experience, you're going to go back to your life. You're going to forget about the work. And 6 months to a year from now, you're going to have the same complaint, the same issue, because I didn't lead from the room, educate and inspire, and call you to take massive inspired in your life and heal your trauma, which is the work that I used to really do. So it's about getting into the driver's seat of leadership and knowing that being the most liked doesn't mean you're the most effective, and being okay with making the audience and the listener uncomfortable so that you can be a catalyst for change.
Mm. Very, very, very great take on the visibility versus profitability because I hear it a lot. I'm doing this, but it's not working. I'm doing this, it's not working. And for me, what I've noticed is I would rather speak to a group of 20 to 50 people that are perfect for what I do than 1,000 people who aren't. Now,
Right.
that being said, it's all about the intention of what you're doing, right? So I would
Hmm.
love to do 1,000 person keynote, and I love doing them. But what is my intention? Is it to convert on the back end, or is it to deliver that amazing hour that's going to just bring so much excitement and let them know what to do next, right? So it depends on what your intention is based on those
Hmm.
different outcomes you're seeking. So I love how you kind of frame that. Look, where do people go to follow you? We've started to dig deep. You've shared some great stuff. I know there's so much more that you do and so much more that you share. So if we want to learn more about how you work together, how you transform people's traumas, how you help people with speaking, so they can actually scale, where should we go find you?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking that. So I'm on Instagram. It's just I am Deidre Sirianni. And also my website is radicallyaligned.com.
Cool. Cool. We'll link all that up, and we'll make sure that everyone gets access to that. And look, I've enjoyed this show. I really enjoyed kind of digging into this, learning more about your story, and also seeing how you've done things. Because knowing that you talk about storytelling and then profitability from storytelling, I was like, okay, what's she doing as she's talking, right? Because you follow your own method, and I thought it was really great because something that I took away is you kind of wove in your personal stories with very clear visual descriptions, which I know is intentional. And then you also did something that I really liked, which was you put into your own personal testimonials while not making it all about you, right? And that was something that I think great speakers really have a knack for doing is they say and tell the result without actually being like, oh look, I made 100,000 from speaking. It was like, no, you broke it down and this is how you did it. So I really enjoyed that, Deidre, and having you come on the show. And so for everyone that's here, I'm going to leave you with a challenge, just like we do on every episode. I'm going to leave you with a challenge, okay? We talked a lot about speaking. I got tons of notes here. We talked about trusting your intuition. We talked about visibility versus profitability. We talked about transforming your trauma. We talked about the most profitable different speaking opportunities. And here's what I want to challenge you to do is I want you to ask yourself, what is the story that you are currently scared to share? What is the story that you are currently scared to share? And if you need, do the life grid. Do the life grid that we talked about. But what is the story that you are scared to share? And if you're ready for the challenge, it would be to do an Instagram live and to share a version of that and start practicing it. And if you're not comfortable going straight there, do a voice recording and send it to one of us. And we'd love to root you on and support you through this. But my challenge is this: find the story you're scared to share and share it with somebody, whether it's yourself in the mirror or whether it's one of us or whether it's the social media world to follow. We'd love to support you and root you on from there. So that's my challenge. Deidre, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. All righty, there you have it. We'll see ya on the next one.